Good afternoon, my friends. We are here at VetteSource today in the garage where we're going to go ahead and play around with our 67 427 car. What we're going to do today is on our quest to pull this thing out of semi-permanent hibernation, which is what it felt like. We're going to go ahead and get the process started to get it rolling, moving, and circuits tested, things like that before we start trying to crank it. So today, in that vein, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and change the tires on this. Now I know this is a simple process, really you don't need a tire change video, but what I thought I'd do is illustrate some of the problems you have with, or guys that have older cars, especially Corvettes with limited clearance in the fender wells, with these original 7.75 tires, trying to put modern rubber on these. So obviously, now these tires that are on this car are a BF Goodyear Silvertown Redline, which was a reproduction. I want to say these were put on the car back in 1990 because that's our last inspection registration event, was 1990 on this car, and it's a reproduction bias ply tire. I think it might be a bias ply, but what you're going to notice about it is it's actually pretty narrow tire, and it has a shoulder that dips in very far right here. And of course these lips on these fender wells, let's see if I can get my light here so you can see. These lips on these fender wells are very fragile on these cars. And not only are they fragile, I'm about to fall out of my chair, hang on. They're fragile, they also come in on the side all the way up around here. So what can happen is, if you're putting a car with a bigger shoulder on it, which is what this tire actually does have, is you run the risk of damaging it. And funny enough, let me look here, I have a feeling, yeah, this has already had a tire that messed it up, and they repaired it in the past in 2 spots. I can feel it right there. So even this car back in the day wasn't immune from, probably the original owner may have thrown some bigger tires on it. I'll have to look at my my notebook that he left me and see what happened in that era, because that's just a very small repair right there, where they probably just burned in some new paint. But that's why you gotta be careful. So the modern equivalent to a, sorry about the screwdriver there, to a 7.75 15 would be a 205 75 15, which I'm going to show you once we mount these that they're okay, but they're not perfect. So let's mount this GoPro so you guys can kind of see the action of what I'm doing here. I'm just using something that's right here to mount to, if I can figure out my mount. But anyway, these tires, and part of the reason why I needed to change these tires was because 2 of them just straight up would not hold air anymore. They had gotten to be so old, so it was better to go ahead and get them changed out. Now these tires here, honestly, I'll show you once they're installed what my concerns are for these tires. I should have had this ready before I started making the video there. I'm gonna put that right there so you guys can see. Now this is just really a generic 205 75 15. It's just a vintage is what they call it, or classic touring tire. It's not anything special at all. It was just there to keep it off the ground. So let's go ahead and get this off of here. And oh, I need to grab my jack. That would help. I'm not getting that off there without the jack. And very carefully we're going to get this right where we want it, so we're clearing our side exhaust and not harming it. Alright, now we're off the ground. We'll go ahead, get this off of here. And these rallies are actually very simple to take off. Just a not so firm grip for your trim rings. Make sure you don't bend them or break the clips. The original ones only have 4 clips per wheel versus the later ones where they put clips on them all the way around the perimeter. So if you break a clip on these, you're going to have a harder time having to stay. And you can see right there, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, just at your 12, 3, 6, and 9 positions. Okay? So we look the other way. Let me get this out. Same thing. That's why these rallies are so loved universally amongst all different products, is because they're very easy, they're pretty stylish for steel wheels, and they're nothing hard to work with. So, now the Corvettes though, in this year, these are a 15x6, pretty certain. Yeah, 15x7 was 1968, and 15x8 was 1969. Put it on the right setting. Alright. And there are original 1967 lug nuts. That's a nice feature to have. These have not been changed. That's the original material, and plating on those, a little bit dirty, but that's pretty cool to have. Okay. Get this off of here. Ah, there we go. Alright, now, put that in there. I'll show you guys while we're in here. Give you a quick view. As seen, there's just not much room in here to work with, especially with this big brake caliper here. 65 was the first year for disc brakes on a Corvette. So you can see there's not a lot of room to move around or to stuff bigger tires inside these things. Now, there are workarounds, suspension modifications, things like that you can do, but the front end is especially susceptible, like you see even in that spot right there where they repaired it in the past. So pretty neat. There's our TI harness. 67 Corvette has actually an early version of the HEI distributor, which this was a required option with the 435 horse solid lift cam. All the solid lift motors, you had to have the TI ignition with them. I think TI was 66 was the first year, if I'm remembering correctly. But anyway, good stuff to have here. All right, let's go ahead and get this back one off. And let me grab my flat tip, and we'll go ahead and get this out of the way and put this down. All right. And we may be able to do this one hand on this thing. There's our first clip. One. Oh, back wheel, so I can't turn it. So we've got the car in gear. There's 2. And you gotta put a little force on them to get them. If they've been on there for a while, because they won't want to come off. And there's 4. Now the other thing too is that this car has lived the majority of its life, all 59 years. Yeah, this car is actually February 26th is this car's birthday. So this car is actually almost 59 years old. So but that entire time, this car has lived in a garage. It has not been outside. Now the funny thing is the first 6 or so years, this car, believe it or not, was used by the young engineer from that graduated from A&M as his daily driver back and forth to a engineering firm that did non-destructive testing for, I think they did that for either industrial or automotive, I can't remember. It's been several years since I talked to the gentleman about it, and sadly he passed away. But for the first 10 years or so I owned this car, I was able to talk to him about it to get some perspective. A little bit of dirt in here I need to clean up. When I found this car, it had actually been sitting for a time being. Even where it was at, it was not prepped, or it kind of was the car that fell between the cracks, honestly. People had not been paying attention to it, but it managed to survive, which was an amazing thing for sure. Alright, so I'm gonna go get these tires mounted, and I will be right back with you guys, so hold tight. Alright, we are back from mounting our new tires on our rims here on our 15x6 rallies. And as you can see here as a comparison side by side, the new ones actually mount up real nice. But if you look at these side by side, you can see how this shoulder here is taller than this one here. See how that slopes down like that? So this will be more apparent how this may pose problems for us once we get these mounted. So let's go ahead and put these on real quick. I'll see if I can do this one-handed. I might be lucky enough to do this. We'll see. If not, I'll just set the camera down for a second. You know, as a matter of fact, what I'll do here is alleviate my suffering and yours having to watch me with a shaky camera. Where we utilize our jack handle. That's the one good thing about having a good, somewhat decent camera mount. It's not perfect, but it works. So let's try to put this one back on, and I'll show you how these tires look by comparison. All right. First one. I think, as I lose my stuff here, hang on. Okay. Lost one of my lug nuts there. Okay. Good thing about these is they actually have the cutout for your valve stumps. There's really only one spot these are going to go on. You just have to get them in the right place. Without breaking the tabs. Easier said than done sometimes. Of course that's gonna fight me. And because there we go. I'm gonna do that last one off camera because I don't want to damage my trim ring, okay guys? Just because being a caretaker of this car, since almost everything on this car is original, I don't want to run the risk or take the risk of damaging things just because I want to get it finished fast. I've actually learned to move much slower with this car because I do want to preserve a lot of stuff on it. Part of that, you know, it's one thing to when you got guys that are resto modding cars, but when they're original like this is just not something you want to mess around with, because sadly you end up potentially destroying value in these cars when you're doing stuff like that. That's one thing if you're taking a wreck and turning it into your own creation. I don't know why this is also giving me so much trouble. And or a car that's been very much abandoned and mistreated over the years. You're not really hurting it that way, right? Kind of what we call Frankenstein vets in the business. But when they've never been torn apart or torn down like this one has, you really want to be more careful in what you're doing. Alright. And I'm not going for a massive torque here on these right now, simply because I will come in later with my torque wrench and torque these down to the proper torque setting on here, because the last thing I want to do is have a tire come off from lug nuts that weren't tightened down properly, or break a stud and it comes off, and then it destroys my entire inner fender and fender on this car. So, alright. Impact. Have this in place. Now what I'm going to show you is what I was referring to. Now we're going to see how this shoulder, this taller shoulder of this tire, affects our relationship with this inner fender lip. So let's lower this really carefully. Okay. Now the back tires are not as bad. It's the front tires you really have to watch out for. So let's go down very slowly. It's funny, this car does look good, but these aren't blue walls. They just have that protective coating on it, but it does look good with blue walls on it. So we're going to come down. Okay. Now with a Corvette, after they started putting the independent rear suspensions in them, sometimes the rear has to settle the spring just a little bit, because this one, it's an elliptical spring. It's a hard one for me. And so it sometimes doesn't want to come back as flat as it could. Now, with this, you can see though, we got enough vertical clearance here, right? But the tire itself is actually pretty close, right? Now these aren't going to move, okay? If these are moving out, in and out, there's something seriously wrong with your car, okay? So it's very unlikely to trash that inner lip right there that we're going to. But on our front one, what we have to be careful of is, you see the shoulder has a little bit of room, about 2 fingers worth in and 2 fingers up, right? But where it gets really tight is starting to be right at this corner right there, right between that and that. So anything bigger than a 205, or even I've seen guys put 215s on theirs, 215-70s, those work. But anything bigger than that, you're going to start running the danger of rubbing these inner fenders or trashing that lip. And here's the deal too, is that every one of these cars back then was still kind of a kit build. It wasn't like, the engineering was really good on these cars, but it wasn't 100%. So they were still built in kind of a dungeon of an assembly line there in St. Louis, and every car has variations. There's not one of these cars that's the same between the other. So what might fit on one car will not fit on another. And I'll show you, we found that repair they did on this one here, but I'll show you on this side, because the other day I went ahead and test fit 2 of these other ones to make sure this would be something to go into. But you can see where it actually was damaged also. They must have had the same, obviously 2 same tires on the front, and one point in the past they damaged it. They fixed that side, but they did not fix that, and that's a very small damage. I'm probably just going to leave it alone. I'm not really, you know, it's the way it goes. You start doing one thing and next thing and next thing, and you know, you're tearing the car apart. And I'm not going to do that to this car. It runs too well, or it did last time I started it, and it's in too good a shape to play around with it just for the sake of trying to make it look prettier. I actually like, and I'm of that, there's different variations in the hobby. I know guys like Factory Perfect, I know like Restamod. I like originality, and I like the look of some patina and worn in, you know, that's my thing. And this car has earned every battle scar it's had over the years, or received or gotten over the years. So let's go ahead and put, see if we can put this cap back on. Let's see if I can do this with this. I doubt it. Nope. No, I'm gonna do it off camera, guys. Don't want to hurt it. But anyway, that's gonna wrap it up today. Just wanted to show you guys what some of the issues that may be involved. Now, to be fair, even though I had these on here and they're brand new, and they really, honestly, they do not look very bad on this car. I think they look pretty handsome, even though they're not a performance-oriented tire. They're just a classic series, right? I probably will not roll around these. These are going to be burner tires that drive out on the road with them. I might get a different one. I might take it up and down the street real carefully just to see how it behaves with these tires on it. But I'm not going to commit to this as my set of tires. I might be forced to go ahead and grab, I think Diamondback makes a tire for these, and maybe a few other manufacturers that make them. But regardless, with this engine, I'm not getting a whole lot of grip back there in the end with all the torque this engine puts out. So I'm just going to have to deal with what I've got. I just don't want to tear up the body on it. So I want to thank everybody for watching tonight. I had a good time. We got this done, I think, in about under 30 minutes. So that's usually my cutoff point. If you got any questions or comments, or even recollections of your 67 or mid-year from the day and tires you put on it, by all means leave them in the comments below. Let us know the story, because most of why I do this, guys, is to share the story with people that have been around here. You know, the history of these cars is really cool, and sharing that amongst the community is a lot of fun, and I've been enjoying doing that. And I do want to thank everybody that watches and takes the time to comment. because it definitely is a thing, and it also helps us pass this on to a younger generation, that if we weren't doing this type of stuff and showing these cars around like this, people wouldn't know what they are. I will tell you that when my kids were teenagers and their friends would come in here and look at this car, they were absolutely gobsmacked, like falling on the floor. They couldn't believe how beautiful this car was. But they'd never seen anything like it. And if they're, you know, and that's what happened with the generations. They don't get exposed to them because you're not going to see this driving around. So again, thank you guys for being here, watching, hanging out with me, you know, being my shop groupies. I do appreciate it, and I'm going to try to get into a tempo this year where I'm back to a little bit more consistent uploading for you, to share the journey with you. So enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys, and I'll catch up with you next time. Thanks.